The second chapter of Garten of BANBAN has arrived. Join me to create two of its main characters with clay, BANBAN and BANBALEENA. I will be making them in their animated and realistic version. Also, I will be telling you the plot of this second chapter, so get comfortable and enjoy this video. BANBAN is a tall red humanoid figure with two horns covered by birthday hats. Of all the monsters in the place, it has the most innocent appearance. BANBAN is one of the main characters in the second chapter. He only appears twice, but he is still an important character in the game, acting as the reason the player is sent to the lab area, and at the end of the game, where he reveals that he is also looking for the missing children. Because of this, it can be presumed that he will be a leading force rather than being antagonist in the next chapters, but that remains to be seen. The second chapter of Garten of BANBAN starts exactly where the first chapter finished, with Jumbo Josh knocked out on the floor, in a completely dark room, a pretty scary start. Then, we use the card we have, and enter a dark corridor. The objective of the game is to look for our supposed son. This time, we are in the middle of some giant buildings, and in one of the bridges, we can find a letter to follow more clues. When we leave the bridge, we go to the nursery. In that same place, we hear a voice through the speakers that tells us that it can see us and wants to help us. It also tells us to say hello to the cameras. It also offers its help, but as it can get out of the room it is in, it asks us to get it out of there. So, first of all, we have to look for a blue card. While we do it, we realize that in reality, this is not a nursery, but a kind of laboratory, in which they are trying to create different beings, half human and half monsters. We realize this by reading a letter that mentions the following. Communication with Case 6 has provided invaluable information that may explain why previous cases have sorely failed, as well as improve the creation of future cases. Despite being seemingly incredibly intelligent, it does not appear to recognize itself as non-human. When addressed as non-human, Case 6 reacts with confusion. Reflections also have no effect, as Case 6 appears to see itself as the human genome donor. A meeting between Case 6 and the human genome donor has not yet conducted. Case 6 describes a constant immense pain that is present in the entirety of its body. Despite the human genome donor of Case 6 being a doctor, the case has failed to give a description more detailed than the pain having to do with the blood flow. Case 6 has no blood in their systems, only gibanium. Case is not ready for presentation. Something interesting that we notice in this letter is that the alias of Case 6 is the devil, so we can intuit that it refers to BANBAN. Then, we have to follow a pattern and touching other certain buttons, this to get a card and be able to go to the downstairs floor to get a blue card, which is very important. When we go back upstairs, we use the blue card to enter a room and read a small note, but someone hits us very hard and knocks us unconscious. When we wake up and turn around, we realize that it is BANBAN, and it tells us that it just stole our DNA, so it seems that BANBAN has betrayed us and leaves us abandoned in a laboratory where we must look for clues to get out of there. In that same place, we find a very important clue. There is another letter from Case 6 that says the following. The procedure in Case 6 has been a success. Case 6 is stable and performs tasks that are necessary for organic beings, such as eating and drinking, as predicted, despite the lack of any biological necessity to do so. As previously observed on other cases with humans as the primary genome, Case 6 recalls many memories and events belonging to the original genome donor as their own, excluding names of people, as well as keeping an identical level of intelligence. Case 6 is also capable of speech as fluently as the original genome donor. Unlike the previous cases with humans as the primary genome, Case 6 is interestingly docile and cooperative, albeit very confused about the circumstances. Most previous cases displayed extremely hostile and nervous behavior towards staff and children alike, a behavior that has been attributed to the new genetical modifications that were applied. Case is not ready for presentation. Then, We have to break a glass of the laboratory to be able to continue with the help of the drone. Once this is done, the lights turn on and we find the orange card. The next thing to do is to get into the elevator to go to the second floor of the laboratory. On this floor, we find several Captain Fiddles, but these seem to be lifeless and are of different colors. We enter a room and we have a new task to do. We have to use a syringe to extract Gibanium from the Captain Fiddles, including the giant blue Captain Fiddles. This seems to be the only one alive. As we go into more rooms, we find another somewhat different letter which mentions the following. This is neither a report nor anything informative in the traditional sense, but a cry for help. Whoever's reading this, I implore you to discuss stopping this madness once and for all. Matters are bound to be sugar-coated when written through some colorful paper, but you do not seem to understand how bad things truly are. Each of the cases that have been developed so far suffer unbearable pain without end. We don't know why, and maybe we're not meant to. I can't imagine any of them anywhere near a child, and maybe they should never be. It would be unrealistic to shoot it all down at once, so all I ask is that you come down here and see things for yourself. Don't live by the stereotype of the evil faceless corporate entity, I ask you please. When we extract the Gibanium from all the Captain Fiddles, we have to deposit it in a jar. Once we do this, it opens a door and gives us a firecracker that we can use to chase away the giant Captain Fiddles. When we chase him away, he leaves us free to rooms. In one of them, we find a cap, and in the other one, we find a pink card. When we open the door with this card, we realize that it sends us to the place of the beginning, so we have to go to the middle door. When we enter, we have to activate several red buttons with the help of the drone. It will open another door that will take us to a long corridor. When we get to the door at the end, we have to open it with the help of the drone. When we enter, we realize that it is completely dark, but inside there is a Bird. Then, we hear a voice of a woman who tells us to go with her. That voice is Bambalina, who seems to want to help us. Bambalina is Banban's female counterpart, which means she looks quite similar to him. She is a tall humanoid with horns, but she is white instead of red, and wears a bow on one of her horns instead of birthday hats. Bambalina only appears in the first chapter of Garten of BANBAN as an illustration. She is first seen in the reception area of the BANBAN kindergarten, in the illustration along with everyone else. Later, when the player enters the creativity area, Bambalina can be seen by herself on the wall as an illustration to the left of the entrance of the main office. There, the illustration has a message on the wall that reads her most famous quote, "Kindness is free, so sprinkle it everywhere." Bambalina plays a much more important role in the second game, although she is still presented as a friendly monster that saves us from Bird. She is a neutral monster in the game, in that if you disobey her, she will kill you, but if you obey her, she will let you live. Once she helps us escape from Bambalina guides us to a classroom where she is the teacher and welcomes us, but tells us we are a little late. Here, things start to get a little messy. The other students are just basketballs with glasses, some bowling pins, and some plant watering cans. If we disobey her and don't sit down, we will have a very bad time. As we sit down, she mentions that the first subject of the day is math, so she asks us to solve the sum of two large numbers. But to answer that question, we have to press the tape we think is the correct one. Then, she asks us two more questions, and that ends the math class, so she asks us to move to the next room. In that room, we have to collect several pieces of gum to be able to sell them to the basketballs, and when we give them all the gum, they give us $1. That dollar, we have to place it next to the bowling pins to save the watering can and take it with the others. Doing this opens a door and we can pick up some glasses. Again, we have to go back to the classroom with Bambalina, and the glasses we picked up help us become a popular kid, so we have to sit with the populars now. And the next subject is about science. She asks us 3 questions, and when we answer them correctly, we have to move again to the next room. Now, we have to pick up all the money from the floor and place it next to the bowling pin. This opens a second door. Inside, there is another bowling pin that we have to take, and then we have to go back to the class. Now, we have to sit next to the other bowling pins, and the next subject is health and kindness. During the questions, a noise sounds outside the classroom, and Bambalina goes to check. So now, it's time to use our drone, so we can escape from that crazy teacher. Once Bambalina returns and doesn't see us, she gets too upset and can be heard talking about how she tried to be a good teacher this time, suggesting that she has had previous classes that ended with no success. She can chase us because the door through which we escaped is closed. Bambalina's last appearance is in the assembly hall. At the time of the assembly, Bambalina enters the room through her own catwalk and chases us along with Jumbo Josh for being a bad student. And just as Bambalina is behind us, she is crushed by Jumbo Josh. Then he takes her away and drops a white card. We enter the room and there is the elevator. We get into it to go downstairs, and here ends this great and murky chapter 2 of Garten of BANBAN. This has been all for the moment. I hope you like BANBAN and BANBALEENA made with clay. If you want me to make the other monsters of chapter 2, let me know in the comments. Also, I invite you to subscribe and leave your like. With this, you support me a lot. Greetings, take care, and see you in the next video.